Welcome to Today in the Garage. I'm your host, Samuel Clark. Today in the garage, we're going to desmog a Valkyrie. We're going to use my Valkyrie 2000 touring model, but this can be done on any Valkyrie model, your 1997 to 2003. I'll be using the shiny desmog kit from Red Eye. So if you want to play along, you might want to think about looking that up online and getting that shipped to your house. In the meantime, let's get started on Today in the Garage. Hey, he doesn't know it yet, but I went ahead and traveled back in time from the end of the project, and I've got a few tips for you. He may tell you these throughout the project, but in case he forgets, I want to tell you a few now. First of all, a few tips about the tools that you'll need. You definitely need a mechanic's set of metric tools, specifically a 10mm head and an 8mm head, along with a 12 and 13. You'll need good wrenches and extensions too. You'll need a good set of Phillips heads and a good set of flatheads. You'll need also some kind of instrument to scrape the bottom of gaskets. You'll see what I mean when you get there. You'll also need a good set of needle nose pliers and regular pliers. A pipe wrench might also be necessary, but I didn't need one. Finally, you'll need some kind of cutting tool. Now, some of the things that you can use, but you don't absolutely have to have. I used a Dremel as the cutting tool. You can use a pipe wrench or something like that, but you don't have a lot of room underneath there. The other thing you're going to need is something to grab with in case you drop screws. I've got a long extension, about 18 inches, with some grabbers at the end. Worked great for me a few times, although you probably didn't notice me using those because they were outtakes. Finally, it's real important to have like either a floor lamp or a headlamp. Those are super helpful when you can't see, even during the middle of the day. Sometimes those places are dark and you just can't have enough light to see. Couple of tips for you. Remove those crash bars and remove the headers. I know it seems like a lot of work, but believe me, it'll help you in the long run. Oh, hey, I've got to get back in my time machine and travel back. It's almost lunchtime. But y'all enjoy this project, and we'll talk to you when we're done. In order to get to the pair valve, you need to remove the tank and the air box. In a previous video, I've shown you how to remove the fuel tank. We're going to go ahead and remove the air box right now. There are 3 rubber hoses that connect the carburetor to the air box, and they each have a clamp on each neck. I'm going to remove each of those clamps, and there's a bolt right here. Okay, we've got the air intake box removed. Here is the pair valve, and here are the 2 Phillips head screws that you'll need to remove. Remember, these are soft, so tread lightly and be careful. Okay, now you've got a straight shot into the top of the engine with the air box removed. The first thing we're going to remove is the pair sensor. This is the pair sensor with these 2 hoses here, and it's real simple. There's 2 Phillips head screwdrivers here. There's 2 hose clamps, one here and one here, and this tube on the top. We can go ahead and remove this real quick. The second Phillips head in here was a little bit tight. I ultimately tried a flathead with a pipe wrench, but ultimately it's just a really big Phillips head. So if you've got one, this would be the one to use. This is a PH3. And now the pair sensor is removed. This remaining hose here is attached to 2 vacuum lines here and here. You'll need to remove those and unplug the ends. We'll do that now. After removing the vacuum tube with the T to intakes 3 and 4, it's now time to remove the vacuum lines to intakes 3 and 4. 3 goes to the right side of the engine and 4 goes to the left side. You can actually track it all the way down, to right here on the left side, and so you'll need to just hit those clamps and pull that line directly off. And on the right side as well, right there. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. A simple pair of pliers is all you need here. I'm going to grab onto the vacuum line from up above with my left hand. I'm going to give the valve a squeeze with my right. Now that the vacuum tube is removed, it's time to go ahead and cap it with a capped tube. It's got here the Happy Fingers clips. Makes it a little bit easier to grab onto. Sorry for the locusts in the background, it's just their time of year. Okay, you know, sometimes having absolutely no mechanical background does not have its advantages. That right there will probably take you about 10 seconds. It took me about 2.5 minutes. C'est la vie. Okay, now for the vacuum tube to number 4. Again, as before, I'm going to actually grab from the back with my right hand and give it a little jolt with my left on the bottom. There, that wasn't too hard. Okay, as you can see, I've got my tip and I'm about ready to start trying to push it on. Maybe this one will go a little bit easier than last time. Okay, it's on pretty tight now. Now the more difficult part, sliding the Happy Fingers clip down past the bulb. Okay, well I guess practice makes perfect. I've got the clip on. It didn't take quite as long as last time. Heading to the next step. Just a quick recap of what we've done. We've removed these 2 screws from the top of the pair valve sensor, which is this monstrosity right here. And then we removed some vacuum hose tubing. This actually connects the pair hose valve to the vacuum tubes for carburetor 4 and for carburetor 3. What we have next is we're going to start removing some of the hard lines and replacing them with the shiny plugs. That's next on the to-do list. The next thing we're going to remove are the 2 check valve cases. There's one on the left side of the bike and one on the right side of the bike. They require 2 10mm bolts. I'm going to remove them now. Here are the bolts now. The left side of the case is a little more to get to. Okay, so as it turns out, no extender at all was the right way to go. Alright, so there's always one bolt that's the hardest, and that happened to be the one there. I'm going to go set it on the table, and we'll remove the check valve covers. Putting a little midline pressure on the left check valve cover, which means putting a little pressure to the right, you're going to be able to slip the check valve cover out of the tube and then pull straight up. Same thing on the right side, a little midline pressure, which means pressure back towards me. Okay, and the right hand check valve cover is removed. It's now time to remove the air feed pipes. There are 6 air feed pipes overall. We're going to start on the left hand side of the bike. There are two air feed pipes that come into the top and one air feed pipe that comes into the bottom of the engine block. The two air feed pipes that come into the top are number 6 right here and number 2 right here. Number 4 comes underneath here. You can see it right through here and then dives right through there. We'll take care of that one here in just a second. We're going to start with number 6. A little Phillips head to help pry the bracket up might be helpful. And the air feed pipe is removed. The air feed pipe for number 2 intake, the bolt is located right here. I didn't say it earlier, but the bolt for number 6 is actually a 10 millimeter. The bolt for number 2 is an 8 millimeter. I'm going to zoom in and show you something else. There's the bracket. The actual plug is just underneath here. I'm going to move this engine guard out of the way. In order to get the rest of the engine bracket off, there's one more bolt that I need to remove. Okay, after removal of the engine guard, you've got direct access, and you can just pull that directly out. So now the air feed pipe for intake number 2 has been removed. We're going to go ahead and move underneath the engine for air feed pipe number 4 to the number 4 intake. We're underneath the left side now, and here's where number 4 comes in. There are 2 Allen wrench bolt heads that hold it in place. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further so you can watch me take them off. All right, the air feed valve to, or the air feed pipe to number 4 is now removed. Now that you've got the air feed pipe underneath number 4 on the left side removed, there's actually a small gasket that you can remove too. You can either use your finger or a flathead screwdriver. In the instructions from Red Eye, he indicates perhaps using a popsicle stick. I just used my finger, it came right off. The next step is you're going to want to clean the area and get whatever residue is left from the gasket. Again, it's recommended to use either a popsicle stick or something like that. I didn't have anything like that available, so I'm just going to use my 1-inch drill hole bore. Next, you'll need your gasket. And then your flange head. And the bolts that came with your kit. Just a minute. That's pretty firm right there. Might try a little bit more on this side. Okay, let's move back to the top and plug up the air feed and going into the intakes there. We are ready to cap the top of the air intake feeds. We're going to start with number 6, and then we'll move over to number 2. In order to put your shiny Desmog kit cap together, the first thing that you'll do is you'll put the white Teflon spacer and the black O-ring. You can actually go ahead and fit that in right there. For the bracket, it goes together like this. You can see there's a small silver washer in between the bracket and the white cap. On the back side, you've got your bolt coming through the bracket, and then you've got your spacer. It fits just like this. The bracket's in snug with the bolt and the cap. We're ready to move to the number 2 intake. Okay, we're ready to go ahead and cap the number 2 intake. I've gone ahead and got my cap together again. Again, you've got the white Teflon spacer and then the O-ring in place. I'm going to go ahead and cap it. For this bracket, you've got the white on this side, and then you've got the spacer there. It's going to go ahead and be placed just like this, and then you're going to use your original nut that you took off previously. As you can see, the cap here and the cap here are now in place, and as you remember, we've already capped underneath. We are on to the right side of the bike to remove the right-sided air feed pipes. We're going to start with the right-sided air feed pipe that goes to intake 5. Again, this is held on with a nut here that's an 8mm. Again, it's a good idea to hang on to this so that you can reuse it later. As you saw, the bracket just fell. You can discard that because you'll have a replacement for your shiny Desmog kit. And remove the air feed pipe. Next, we're going to move the bolt that holds the bracket in place for air feed pipe number 1. This is air feed pipe number 1. If you'll notice, this bracket is bolted down, but also attached to air feed pipe number 3. We're going to go ahead and remove the bolt now, but we'll wait just a second and remove air pipe feed number 3 so that we can actually go ahead and remove the bracket completely. I didn't say so initially, but this takes a 10mm. We're going to go ahead and move to the underside of the bike and remove air feed pipe number 3. We're now on the underside of the right side of the bike. You can see that the air feed pipe to number 3 comes in right here. For now, I'm going to actually cut the the feed pipe right here. I'm going to use a Dremel. I'm going to do a couple of things before I actually start cutting though. One thing is I'm going to pull this electrical cord out of its bracket and just kind of let it hang a little more loosely. I'm going to go ahead and loosen those now. You can see, now that I have this loose, the way that the feed pipe is curved and angled around the engine block, it doesn't just pull straight out. That's okay. This electrical bracket needs to go ahead and come off so I can make the appropriate cut. You won't be needing this air pipe here, so what I've gone ahead and done is just bent it down. I did put a little bit of cardboard right here so that as I cut against it, it won't hurt the metal. While I'm down here, I'm going to go ahead and put the gaskets and the blind flange in place. Remember from the other side, we needed to go ahead and pull this old gasket off. Now I'm going to scrape it clean. It should be pointed out at this point that I've already removed my exhaust system and headers. This would be infinitely more difficult if the exhaust headers were in place. I'm not sure that it's impossible, but I don't know that I would attempt it without the headers removed. We don't reuse the Allen heads. The shiny Desmog kit comes with screws that'll go in here. Okay, the gasket, the blind flange, and the 2 bolts are now in place. This is a 10mm if you hadn't guessed already. We're going to go ahead and move back up to the top of the cylinder head and remove the rest of the air feed pipe for number 3, and then we'll be able to remove the air feed pipe for number 1. As you can see here, the air feed pipe for number 3 that goes to the bottom is now much more loose, but it's not completely able to be removed. I'm going to put a little bit of upward pressure, and then we've got an area right here where we should be able to cut. Got it. And finally, the last part of the air feed pipe. With that part gone, you can now remove the air feed pipe going to intake 1. All the air feed pipes have now been removed. We can go ahead and now cap the air feed pipe intake number 1 and air feed pipe intake number 5. To cap the air feed pipe intake that goes into number 1 here, again, you'll put your plug together with the white Teflon spacer and then the O-ring. Put that in place. Next, you have your bracket, and then you'll need your metal spacer that goes on top of the white cap, and you can see the orientation here. It'll go right there. We do need to put a little spacer right here so that everything fits together just so. Okay, we've gone ahead and taken care of the cap for the air feed pipe and the air intake to number 1. We're going to move over now and take care of the air feed pipe for number 5. We have the plug here for air feed pipe number 5. Again, the white Teflon spacer and the black O-ring. Going to go ahead and place it in place there. We're going to put together our bracket. So we have the bracket, and you can see the orientation here. It's going to go just like this, and then we're going to tighten it down. Bring that. Okay, at this point, we actually have all of our intakes capped. It's now time to reinstall the crash bars. I do recommend that once you take them off, go ahead and take both sides off until you're finished working around the cylinder head. If you've also removed your Baker air wings, now is also the time to reinstall them. Okay, the crash bars and the Baker air wings are now reinstalled. Since we're doing the desmog, one more thing I'm going to do before reinstalling the airbox is to replace the vacuum line to the fuel petcock. So, the new vacuum line is now installed, and we can head to the final piece of the puzzle, which is reinstalling the airbox. Before installing the airbox back into the bike, we need to plug up the secondary air intake port. The Shiny Desmog kit gives you a nice big nipple to go ahead and place over there, and a nice strong lock to go ahead and keep it in place. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, it's in place, and we're ready to install the airbox. The intake box is in place and ready to be attached to the manifolds. I have a little bit more squishing left to do, so those of you who are sadistic and want to watch me do that, please feel free. Outside of that, there's 2 air hoses on the bottom that I have to reattach, and then we're good to go. So the air intake box is now in place. The only thing I have left to do is go ahead and screw down the collar clamps on each of the rubber bracket manifolds, and we'll be good to go. Let me show you a little close-up of how I'm attaching the airbox to the intakes. There's a little rubber hose that goes from the airbox to the intakes, and then there's a screw clamp at the very ends of them. You want to make sure that they're tightened down, and we'll kind of show you what that looks like right now. You can see right here the rubber is not quite fitting correctly. I think you can see that in front of the air wing. Ports number 5 and 3 are fine, but we've got to fit this around a little bit better. Okay, I think that's better. There we go. It just needed to kind of come around that flange a little bit better. It might be necessary to loosen these a little bit more to slide them over the edge than you had to loosen them in order to pull them off initially. Try your best not to back it out all the way. Here are the pile of parts from the Valkyrie that we removed for the Desmog project. Let me show you what it looks like now. You can see that you no longer see the lines running through there. The airbox has been reinstalled, and you've also got a clean right side to the engine. Again, the plugs are installed and they look good. Okay, one final thing. Pat yourself on the back. That wasn't the easiest of jobs, especially if you're like me and you don't have a lot of mechanical background. But we did it and we pushed through. I recommend that you watch this video all the way through from the very beginning. Maybe something I should have said at the beginning. Maybe I'll actually say it at the beginning. I appreciate your time and attention. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you do some things that maybe you didn't think you could do before. So as your host, Samuel Clark, thanks for watching Today in the Garage.